I can't believe how ignorant and how ridiculous people are with this DNP stuff. I'm going crazy. Stay tuned. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show, weekly question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding. Obviously, this past weekend was the 2025 Arnold Classic, and a highly, highly exciting one at that. Derek Lunsford coming out victorious in the open class over fellow reigning Mr. Olympia Samson Dauda. Mike Sommerfeld taking the classic physique crown. So setting up all sorts of storylines and narratives now about 7 months out of the Olympia. You're going to go in now with three Mr. Olympias, or three competitors with Mr. Olympia titles under the belt over the course of the last 3 years, and really an epic rubber match. And now in classic physique, Mike Sommerfeld establishing himself as the number one prospect for the vacated classic physique title. We're going to go right into the questions. The first two questions on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question about peptides. Which peptide, in addition to HGH, can provide for an extra layer of fat loss?
You know, the peptides are really not good fat loss agents. I mean, growth hormone has some obviously good potential if applied with the proper diet. Usually GH works best in a low carb diet for burning fat, but it definitely mobilizes fat directly. Now, there are some of the GH fragments and the growth hormone releasing peptides are kind of good, but they don't really do better than growth hormone. So, I mean, if you couldn't get GH and you couldn't afford it, I mean, I would do some GH fragments probably. I would do some of the sermorelin, the testosterone, all those growth hormone releasing peptides can help certainly a little bit, but you're not going to get like direct fat burning. I always tell people the best fat burner that you can possibly put into your body, if you had to pick one fat burner, clenbuterol. It works fast, it's effective, and it works continuously. A lot of people think you have to stop it and start it. You don't. It continues to work. It won't work as well as it did the first 2 weeks because, I mean, just like steroids don't work as well as they did the first 6 weeks, but they still continue to build muscle. Same thing with clenbuterol, still burns fat. So if I had to pick one, clenbuterol. If I had to pick a second, T3, which is active thyroid hormone. If you want, stack those two together. That's going to give you way more fat burning than GH is going to give you. Now, GH obviously has a muscle building and a reparative effect on the body as well. But if you're looking for pure fat burning, for the money, clenbuterol and T3 is the best bang for your buck.
Second question, again, these first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. It's a question about DNA testing. Can DNA testing tell me what training style, high volume, low volume, high intensity, et cetera, would work best for me? So DNA testing, tailoring workout styles.
I mean, theoretically, it could tell you, what kind of nutrients you burn better, carbs or fat. But, and sometimes that can tip you off. But truth be told, the easiest way to figure out what training style is best for you is trial and error. In other words, for most people, I'm not talking about the genetic freaks like Jay Cutler and Phil Heath and Ronnie. For most people, high intensity, full range of motion, heavy weights. Now, obviously, heavy weights are linked to what I just said prior to that, which means you have to do full range of motion in good form. You just don't push heavy weights to push heavy weights. I see guys in the bench press, they're doing like quarter reps. That's not full range of motion. So full range of motion with heavy weights, high intensity, less volume tends to build muscle better in most people, because most people overtrain. Their bodies can't recover well from doing high volume. And for most people, doing high volume and lighter weights just doesn't build muscle, because why would the muscle get bigger if it doesn't have to lift heavier weights? The reason why the muscles grow, hypertrophy, is because you're putting a stress on them, a weight stress on them that they can't handle. So the fibers say, we're not strong enough. We got to build these fibers bigger and stronger so we can lift this weight that this individual is forcing us to do every, once a week for each body part. That's what changes your body. Now, there are genetic freaks that just, and I've seen it, Paul Dillette, Vince Taylor, they can do 20-pound dumbbell curls and their arms grow. Why? Who the heck knows? They're genetic freaks. You don't look at what they do and say, oh, I'll just copy what they do, because it won't work for you. It's not going to work for, I know it didn't work for me. The only way I built muscle was to get under that heavy weight with full range of motion and really push hard, and push smart, meaning that I didn't do as many sets. When I would go too much volume, I would be eating up my own muscle because I couldn't recover from the workout. So high intensity, heavy weight, full range of motion, that works for 98% of the population.
Before we go to the rest of our questions, our friends at Titan Medical have a sale running this week. They have a sale, first of all, on the quote-unquote Healing Wolverine package, BPC and TB 500. Also promoting anything from muscle mass, anything they have lost during their injury or setback. We'll be doing $25 off growth peptides, CJC, Impomorelin, Testosterone, MK677, and Hexarelin. So, Dave, another big sale from our friends at Titan Medical.
And that's just what we were talking about. These are the most potent growth hormone releasing peptides. They're made in a lab in the United States. They're compounded. They're high quality. You don't have to worry about impurities in them. They work. And everyone responds to these slightly differently. So you might want to try different ones and see how your body responds. Some people might respond to the testosterone better than the sermorelin or better than the CJC. You can try a variety of them. Sometimes guys will do 2 at a time, one in the morning, one at night type of thing. And they work, if you can't get real growth hormone. And there's a lot of people that just can't afford real growth hormone. They don't want to spend their mortgage payment on GH. And this is a nice alternative because it is affordable. And there is a place, obviously, you can get it legally. And you can also get a high quality form of it. And I would recommend trying it. If you haven't done anything, or if you don't use GH, give it a shot. If you're looking just for some longevity purposes, we all know growth hormone is the anti-aging hormone, boosting your own body's natural, quantities of GH is going to help you recover better, feel better, be more mentally astute. And once again, if you contact everyone over there at TitanMedicalCenter.com and you tell them Dave Palumbo, RxMuscle sent you, they're going to give you a nice discount. Plus, they're running a discount already this month. And they're very helpful. So if you want to ask a lot of questions about what this does, what that does, what they recommend, they will make some really good recommendations for you. So check it out now. I can't hear you, Sid.
Always forgetting to turn that mute button off. But yesterday on After Hours, we talked about a very tragic story that came out of this Arnold Classic weekend. A very young woman by the name of Jody Vance passing away. Now, again, her coach has gone on record as far as, again, his side of the story. There are different stories floating around as far as, why she was dieting, what she may have been taking. She was not competing at the Arnold Classic, but then again, theories for him. And the conversation yesterday on the show was a suspicion of DNP use. Now, Dave, this is something you've been very, very hell-bent about avoiding DNP use under any circumstance, that it is just not a drug that's worth taking under any circumstance. But you did get some pushback in the comments yesterday. Some people saying that, again, your line of thinking is, again, that you should not be taking it all, but their line of thinking is, well, under certain dosages, that it is effective and not dangerous, not lethal. Again, there's never going to be universal agreement on anything, but your take, if you want to expand a little bit more about upon DMP, and then again, coaches subscribing or prescribing DMP to their clients.
First of all, if I was that coach, I wouldn't have said a word, because he didn't put a gun to her head and tell her to take the stuff. So he should have just said nothing. You know, if he had recommended it, from what I understand in the past, to clients of his, he should just stop. Now, this is certainly a message from the big guy upstairs that this is not something to be played with. It's just not something that should be in the arsenal of fat burners that you use. There's plenty of other stuff I mentioned earlier, clenbuterol, T3, much safer, more controlled. The problem with DNP is, number one, you don't know what the bad dosage is for each person, because everyone's metabolism metabolizes the stuff differently. Okay, the lethal dose and the effective dose, I will stick by that, are still very close to each other. Yes, you can use less than the effective dose, but whoever uses less than the effective dose, everyone starts out low and then they start bumping it up because they want to get the effective fat burning effect from it. Any drug that can kill you, and we've seen a lot of deaths from DNP, okay, that can kill you at any dose should not be used, okay? If you overdo testosterone, you don't die, okay? If you overdose on diuretics, you can die, right? So that's why we're very careful and cautious about diuretics. If you overdose or you take, high amounts of GH, you might get side effects like water retention, something like that, but you don't die. So DNP, we know, has a dosage that you die from, okay, because you cook your insides, basically. So that has no business being in anyone's arsenal of drugs that they should be using at any point, whether it be the Olympia prep or just getting in shape for the Arnold Classic. That should not be. And I don't know if that's what killed her or not. We don't know. She could have been on too many diuretics too, or it could have been a combination of the diuretics and DNP. But we know that DNP has killed people. We know diuretics have killed people. So you don't arbitrarily take that stuff and walk around and think that you're safe, because you're not. You're not. If you take too many diuretics, you might not die from the diuretics dehydrating you, but your blood may turn to sludge, and especially in this day and age with all the the jab things and the COVID going around, you could get a blood clot and die. So not good to be walking around for days after days after days dehydrated. And DNP at no dosage is safe. Okay, I don't care, because people start out low and then they increase it, and we don't know how a person metabolizes it. So there is no effective way. Any drug that causes death at a certain dosage in certain people is not something that should be used. There's no rationalization. You're not going to convince me that it's something that you should use. And I'm hardly conservative by any means, Sid. I'm the guy who, is originally the guy who pushed the envelope, right? So if I'm telling you the stuff is not safe, you shouldn't use it. Just like I tell you, don't inject your quads. You can inject your quads 100 times, and on the 101th time, you're going to wind up in the hospital with an infection that needs to be filleted open. Don't do it. It's just not worth it. There are certain things in certain places we just don't go in this sport because it's just too dangerous. DNP is one of those.
Transitioning to a much lighter topic, and that is carb sources. Your thoughts on bread and pasta as carb sources, I guess, conducive for bodybuilders?
Look, you can use any carb source you want. It's a matter of what your body's going to use and metabolize well, okay? Bread doesn't seem to get metabolized very well unless you have a ridiculously fast metabolism. Like, even me, when I would eat pizza, I would feel like so bogged down and so full for so long that I just didn't. It just messed me up, and which is weird because I can, like I said, I could eat a gallon of ice cream and metabolize it, but there were certain foods that just too much lactose, too much dairy, and too much bread just never did well for me. Rice, potatoes, lower glycemic carbs like that, or higher glycemic carbs, or even carbs that even like sweet potatoes and brown rice, which are lower glycemic carbs, they just burn really easily in the body. Oatmeal, grits, cream of rice. When you start putting a lot of pasta in, and I used pasta because it takes a long time to digest pasta, so my metabolism worked well for. But a lot of people, they eat pasta and they gain a lot of body fat from it. It's just because it sits in your system too long. Bread, same thing. It just sits and lays in your system for a long time. If you're off season, you can incorporate it, but I wouldn't be doing it at every single meal. Matter of fact, I was at the Arnold this past weekend. they had this marketplace that was right up the street from the Hilton. And I was walking up there every day, and I was buying food there, because rather than wait in a restaurant, it was cheaper. The food was amazing. They had like all these different ethnicities there. And I was going to this one Greek place, buying some salmon and chicken, and they had rice and salads. It was delicious. But there was a pretzel place there, and I love pretzels. You know, the pretzels. That's one thing I miss in New York. You go into New York City, get those big pretzels. Oh my God, they're awesome. Those soft pretzels.
They got to be fresh,
right?
They got to be fresh.
They have to be
if
fresh.
They're stale, it ruins the entire experience.
Even the wet ones, Sid, I like. I know it's just disgusting. You know, the wet, hard ones sometimes you get in the city because it's at one of the stands. I can even eat those, and I just, there's something about them that I just love. And so they had them here. They had a stand that just did pretzels, and I was eating them like all day. And they were like $6.50 a piece. They weren't cheap for one big pretzel. So I was eating like 2 of those a day, and you know what? It was laying in my stomach heavy, and I didn't care because I wasn't really eating. I was, we were running around all over the place, so I was burning through them. But I could tell the difference when I eat bread versus rice and potatoes. So don't make your whole diet bread and pasta. A little bit, no problem. Make it mostly carbs that burn real easily.
So those questions about maintaining a physique, or rather scientifically why we cannot maintain a physique to a certain extent. Scientifically, what exactly happens to the body as we age that prevents us from maintaining the quality of our physique? Even the greatest bodybuilders can't recapture what they once had once they reach a certain age, no matter what they do. What is happening physiologically? Do the bones and muscles change in some way?
Yeah, I think that skin elasticity, I think collagen production is one of the things that really breaks down, which makes us look old or older. And some of us have better collagen connective tissue than other people. And also the moisture level, the oils in your skin also will make you look younger. It's like, having a baseball glove and oiling it up, and it just doesn't crack, and it looks better. Well, greasy Italians and Greeks like, me, as Italians, the skin tends to age better because it's very well naturally moisturized all the time. But the collagen breaks down. So what happens is, even I noticed it a little bit in my body, the skin it's not as taut as it was when you were younger. It's not like adhering to your muscles as much. So it has a little bit of a sag. Even if you don't, like, I have no body fat on my body, but there are certain areas, around like my chest a little bit. It's just a little bit of sag there that just wasn't there. It doesn't have the pop that when we're younger. So I think collagen. So that's the same thing in the face. The face starts to droop a little bit as we get older. In some people, it happens faster than others. I think people that don't have a lot of oils in their skin, they get more wrinkles. Whereas guys that have a lot of oil don't get the wrinkles, but you still get the face sag. And that's because the collagen is breaking down. And what causes that to happen as we age? Who the heck knows? I don't think anyone's figured it out. If they would have, we would be reversing it. That's number one. So if the collagen is breaking down, I'm assuming that probably the blood vessel walls also get stiffer and the collagen is not as strong in there. And that's why blood pressure can go up a little bit. And internally, I think the organs just are not as viable. So something with connective tissue breaks down as we get older. And I think that's what weakens the structure of our body, the bone structure, because remember, all the muscles are attached to the bone by connective tissue. So when that weakens, you're more prone to tearing things. You're more prone to getting injuries. You feel a little more creaky. Your lubrication of your joints goes down. And once again, it's all connective tissue. Connective tissue is joint lubrication, blood, and ligaments, tendons, and cartilage. And that's what seems to break down, because the muscle will stay. You can keep your muscle, assuming you don't have any injuries. It's the connective tissue that's doing that. And I think if we could figure out how to reverse that breakdown of connective tissue and figure out what's causing it, that I don't necessarily know if we'll live longer, but we'll look nicer and we'll look better when we do die. So that's the future of anti-aging, I think.
Well, this question is about finasteride, not necessarily for hair growth or regrowth. Does finasteride increase testosterone and thereby have a positive effect on gains?
It could, and I'll tell you how it could. Because your body converts a certain percentage of testosterone into estrogen and a certain percentage of testosterone into DHT. If it converts to those other two things, you're losing testosterone, right? So you don't have as much testosterone to build and repair muscle. How much you convert is genetic. Like if you look at my DNA test that I had done, by the way, if you want to get your DNA tested, it's DNA Power. It's right on my DavePalumbo.com website. You get the kit, you swab your cheek, send it in, and you get your full results. It's a phenomenal panel that they run. And it'll tell you, right there, I have zero ability to, I'm like terrible at DHT. I over-convert my testosterone to DHT. That's why I've always had acne when I was younger, and I had, probably hair loss. And so now I'm on finasteride, which blocks that testosterone to DHT conversion. For me, that raises my testosterone because I'm such a high converter normally. Even on no drugs, I'll convert. I don't convert that much to estrogen. So, but when I block the DHT pathway, I get a little more estrogen production. So sometimes I have to take a little bit of half an Arimidex, once a week or so, just a little bit to keep my testosterone. Now, I also take the test, and I was originally taking my Testalized product before I actually came out with it. I was doing salt palmetto, but it wasn't doing enough for me to block the DHT conversion because I'm a super high converter. For most people, they can take my Testalized product, 3 pills twice a day, and it will get rid of extra estrogen, and it will get rid of the DHT conversion because they don't convert a lot. The only way to know how much you convert is to look at your blood work and to get your or to get your DNA tested. And in doing so, you want to minimize how much testosterone converts to DHT and estrogen. You don't want to eliminate it because you still need those drugs, those hormones for sex drive and for androgen sensitization. But you want to keep them on the lower normal side and keep testosterone on the high normal side. So yes, blood work, DNA testing was going to help you determine what the method you should use is. I wouldn't just knee-jerk use finasteride because if you're not a big DHT converter and you lower your DHT too much, you're going to lose your sex drive, and you're not going to be happy. So once again, DNA testing is most definitive. The second best is to do blood work while you're on a cycle or on HRT and see how much you're actually converting to DHT.
Let's take a training-related question. My question is about going to failure. If my plan is to do 3 working sets, all 8 to 12 reps on 3 to 4 different exercises, should I be going to near failure on every set of every exercise?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming you're raising the weights. So if you're doing 3 sets of a specific exercise, I'm assuming the last set is the heaviest. So that's the one you want to go to failure on. The ones that are lighter for you, those are your warm-up sets, essentially. You're getting your body warmed up. So for that last set where you're going to do the heaviest weight for that movement, if you're bench press or incline bench pressing, ostensibly that last set would be 315 if that's your max that you can do 6 to 8 reps on, and you're going to bang that out and push to failure on that and then move on to the next exercise. So yeah, you don't go to failure on every set, just on the last heaviest set.
Question about TRT. If I were to go on TRT, what else should I be taking besides an estrogen blocker?
Well, you might not even need an estrogen blocker. What I tell people to do is go on TRT, get blood work done after about 4 weeks and see what your estrogen and DHT levels are. And then you'll know, hey, do I need an estrogen blocker? Do I need a DHT blocker? Otherwise, you don't know because everyone converts testosterone differently. Some people are high estrogen converters. Some people are high DHT converters. I mean, if you take a shot of testosterone and after a week, your nipples start hurting, then you have high estrogen. Then you might want to start a little Arimidex. But I would still get your blood work done after 3 or 4 weeks on the testosterone so you can see how your body's converting it. Once again, most people on TRT don't need an estrogen blocker, or if they do, they need like a half an Arimidex once or twice a week, max. People who are high DHT converters like me, you might want to I would try Testalized as a first line of defense. If that works, great. If it doesn't, and you feel like you're still converting too much or your levels are still too high on blood work, and maybe you're getting some hair loss or you're getting some nipple sensitivity, or you're getting some acne, you might need to go to finasteride. But I would always, on the DHT blockade, I would rather see you opt for a natural route like Testalized rather than go right to the finasteride.
Question about Cody Rhodes, who, again, we really need to make more of a big deal about you coaching him and everything, but it expands a little bit more about how you effectively manage the diets of the WWE wrestlers you work with, as they are always on the road, and it will be hard for them to stick to a plan. And then I guess, will Cody be in his peak form come Wrestlemania?
Yeah. It is tough because these guys, I actually am working currently with 2 guys in the WWE, and Cody has a little bit of an advantage because he's the superstar now. He's making really good money, so he can have access to whatever food he needs, and he has a lot of people helping him out and everything like that. So, and he's determined I'm determined to get him in the best shape of his life for WrestleMania. So we want to, he's suffering now. He's a little flat on the tour. He probably looks good on TV because TV adds weight to you, but he's low. He's low on carbs, and I'm doing a lot of cardio with him, and because we really want him to look awesome for WrestleMania. And he's one of the hardest workers you'll ever see. The guy never says no to anything. And it's funny because you think the guy is he doesn't have a lot of body fat, but he, by his own admission, he's like, my father was Dusty Rhodes. He's like, he had the fat gene. I have the same fat gene. I just watch my diet better than my father did. So he, has to really be careful. Whereas when I worked with Triple H had a good metabolism. So, if I could feed him every once in a while a lot of food and it wouldn't matter. It would just stimulate his metabolism. Cody will get fat if I feed him too much. So different strategy. And, and I work with other guys also that have, tough. This guy's not as big of a superstar as Cody, but he also, he travels all the time. So it's like he's got to prepare his food. He has to bring his shakes with him. Once again, when you get into that lifestyle, you know what you're doing all the time. So if you're on the road all the time, you have to prepare. All right, what am I going to eat? And I always tell people, you can eat healthy anywhere. If you need to eat McDonald's, you can eat McDonald's burgers. You don't have to eat the fries and the buns with the burgers. There's always a way to get food, and a lot of these fast food places have salads now, so you can get a burger on top, put it on top of a salad, a lot of these guys bring a little bottle of my macadamia nut oil. They put it on there. So you can do it. You just have to really, plan how to make your meals. If you only go on vacation once a year, you don't know how to deal with it. It seems like impossible to eat right? But when you do it every single weekend, you get into a rhythm of how to prepare what you need to be able to get the foods that you require. It becomes second nature because these guys they're doing it all the time. It just seems overwhelming to a person who's not on the road all the time. When I used to travel like almost every weekend, when we were doing contest coverage for RxMuscle all the time, I had a suitcase that was always packed with all the supplies I needed. So I had doubles of everything. So I didn't have to worry, I have to pack this. I just had everything packed already. And that's what these guys do too. So you got to just plan. If you don't plan, you plan to fail.
Interesting one here. Question about bodybuilders during peak week. How depleted are these guys getting? And I guess he's talking about open class bodybuilders.
Yeah.
I've been in a calorie deficit before, and I've gotten dizzy, weak, sometimes weird heart rhythms if I'm in a moderate deficit. Are these guys on stage going through that a lot? This can't feel good being super low calorie, super dehydrated at the same time. It really just adds to how badass they are, obviously, and how they're able to maintain a level head. So, for all the showmanship that we talk about, that we want to see out of bodybuilders, take us through the state of mind that a bodybuilder is in when they're on that stage.
Well, on stage, you're usually carved up. So, you're a little, you are dehydrated. So you're not feeling that good, but at least you've eaten, for a couple of days for most of these guys. It's the 4 weeks leading up to the show that's brutal. And, look, I probably had one of the best metabolisms, out there. And when your body fat is low, like really low, like in single digits, you feel like crap all the time. It doesn't matter how much food you're eating because you're burning through it. So it's the idea that your body fat is so low that there's no reserves. So you eat a meal and you feel good while you're eating the meal. And then, a half hour after you finish the meal, you're starving again. And you're like thinking, oh my God, I got another hour and 20 minutes to my next meal. And you don't even know what to do with yourself. And it's a miserable, miserable feeling because people are like, oh, you're eating 8 times a day. What are you complaining about? Yeah, but I'm burning through it all. It's not like I have this extra food in me that's making my brain feel good. Yeah, for 20 minutes, it feels good. And then I'm starving until the next meal again. So it's like you're existing from meal to meal. That's really what it amounts to. And a lot of guys can't take that. It's too tough. It feels like, it's too much suffering. They're just not wired that way to suffer. Whereas certain people like myself, I don't know why, I'm wired to make myself suffer. I think that if I don't suffer, I'm not achieving anything. And so for me, that suffering is like validation for everything that I get in response to it. So I can do it. And there's a lot of guys out there exactly like that. I work with people like that. I've talked to people. It's always like we enjoy what the next suffering, that we're going to get from our coach is going to be. And that's just the way certain people are wired. And those people tend to be the best bodybuilders. The guys that don't like to suffer wind up cheating on the diet because they don't care. They're like, you know what? I feel so terrible. I don't care. I'm going to eat something. And then they come into the show and they're a little off and then they complain. And then they realize it's really my own fault. And they keep repeating the same problem over and over. Flex Wheeler was a self-admitted cheater. on his diet. He would, get to a point where he would just couldn't take it anymore. But then you got guys like Dorian that would, never deviate. And those are the guys, the guys like Dorian can't be beaten because you cannot shake this guy. He will never fail. He will never deviate. He will never, give into his desires. And that's why bodybuilding is so hard, because there's not a lot of people wired to suffer for long periods of time. And that's why I take my hat off to anyone who brings the best conditioning of their life. I'm sure Derek was not fucking happy, leading up to that show. He was happy in the sense that he was happy that the way he looked, but I'm sure he was miserable in between, getting those last 3 weeks up until the day of the show. And that's just the way bodybuilding is. If you don't like it, if you can't suffer, you're in the wrong sport.
And that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder right now on the channel, our entire week's worth of Arnold Classic coverage, our wrap-ups, which featured an entire megastar cast. We had head judge Steve Weinberger, 4-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, 7-time Mr. Olympia Phil Heath, obviously Dave, Chris Aceto, John Hansen, Ali Bilal, the winner of the men's physique division. He joined the wrap-up as well. Then we have a separate interview with Derek Lunsford. And then, of course, the breakdown on Heavy Muscle Radio. And then, of course, yesterday's episode of After Hours. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you won't miss anything that we have post Arnold Classic. And then, of course, now getting into the thick of the contest season. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate all of your support. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.